Look at her. What nerve in that rag.
Indeed, she must have wandered in from the stables.
Shocking, how inappropriate.
Look at her. What nerve in that rag.
Indeed, she must have wandered in from the stables.
Shocking, how inappropriate.
The feared Duke walked right past his mistress and kneeled before the quiet bride who challenged him. Valerian, the Duke of Thorne, did not marry for love. He didn't even marry for duty. He married for sport. He was a man who had everything, wealth, power, and a reputation so terrifying that grown men crossed the street to avoid him. He was bored. He was cruel. And tonight, he planned to have some fun. He had invited Elara, a destitute vicar's daughter, to his grand ball. Not to dance, but to destroy her. He held her father's debts in his hand. He planned to mock her poverty, propose to his mistress right in front of her, and then send Elara to debtor's prison. It was the perfect game. But the Duke made one fatal calculation error. He assumed Elara would beg. She didn't. She looked the devil in the eye and told him exactly what he was. And in that moment, the game changed. The Duke didn't send her to prison. He decided to trap her in a much more dangerous cage. Welcome to Chapter 1. The moment the feared Duke walked right past the woman he was supposed to marry, and kneeled before the only woman who dared to hate him. If you love a high-stakes enemies to lovers story where the heroine has a backbone of steel, hit that like button. And make sure you are subscribed, because this marriage is going to be a battlefield. Now, let the games begin. The ballroom was a sea of gold and velvet. The air smelled of expensive perfume and fear. I, Elara Vance, stood in the center of the floor. I was wearing my only good dress, a grey wool thing that had been mended 3 times. I looked like a smudge of ash in a room full of diamonds. Seated on a raised dais, like a king on a throne, was Valerian, the Duke of Thorne. He was devastatingly handsome, in the way a storm is handsome. Dark hair, sharp eyes, and a mouth curled into a permanent sneer of boredom. Leaning against his shoulder was Lady Bianca. She was wearing scarlet silk. She looked at me and laughed behind her fan. Is this the one, Valerian? Bianca purred. She looks like a frightened little mouse. Valerian didn't laugh. He just stared at me. He held a stack of papers in his hand. My father's debts. Elara Vance, his voice boomed across the silent room. Your father died owing me £5,000. You have no assets. You have no home. You have nothing. He waved the papers lazily. I brought you here to give you a choice. You can go to the scullery and scrub my floors for the rest of your miserable life, or you can go to debtor's prison tonight. The crowd tittered. They loved watching the wolf play with its food. Beg for the scullery, girl, Bianca sneered. It's more than you deserve. I felt the blood rush to my face. Not from shame, but from anger. I looked at Valerian. I saw a man who had so much power he had forgotten how to be human. I took a step forward. I choose neither, I said. The room went dead silent. Valerian raised an eyebrow. Excuse me. I walked to a nearby table. I poured a glass of wine. My hand did not shake. I said, I choose neither, I repeated, my voice clear and steady. I would rather rot in a rat-infested cell than scrub the floors of a man who mistakes cruelty for power. I raised the glass to him in a mock toast. Look at you, Valerian. You sit on that velvet chair. You surround yourself with sycophants who laugh at your cruel jokes. You think you are a giant. I took a sip of wine. But you are smaller than the beggar at your gate. At least the beggar knows he is empty. You actually think you are full. Bianca shrieked. How dare you? Valerian, throw her out. Have her whipped. But Valerian didn't move. He was staring at me. His boredom was gone. His eyes were wide, dark, and glittering with something intense. Adrenaline. He had expected a mouse. He found a viper. He slowly stood up. He was tall. Terrifyingly tall. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. The ring. Everyone knew he was planning to propose to Bianca tonight. Bianca saw the box. She gasped, clapping her hands. She stood up, smoothing her red dress, shooting me a triumphant look. Finally, she whispered, "Valerian, darling." Valerian began to walk down the steps of the dais. He moved like a predator. Slow. Deliberate. He walked toward us. Bianca stepped forward, extending her hand, a smug smile plastered on her face. She was ready for the ring. She was ready to be the Duchess. Valerian didn't even blink. He walked right past her. He left her hand hanging in the air. He didn't even look at her. He walked straight to me. He stopped inches from my face. I could smell him, brandy, leather, and danger. "You think I am empty, Elara," he whispered. His voice was low, intimate, and terrifying. "I know you are," I whispered back. He smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a man who had just found a new favorite toy. "Then fill my life," he said. He dropped to one knee. He knelt in the dirt of my poverty, ruining his pristine trousers. He held up the ring, a massive diamond meant for a woman who would worship him. And he offered it to the woman who despised him. "You think you are better than me," he challenged, his eyes locking onto mine. "You think you are so moral, so strong." He pushed the ring toward me. "Prove it. Marry me, Elara. Become my Duchess. Enter my world. Let's see how long your high morals last when I give you everything you hate." It wasn't a proposal. It was a dare. He was trapping me. If I said no, he wins. I go to prison, and he proves I was a coward. If I said yes, I enter the lion's den. I become the property of a monster who wants to break me for fun. I looked at the ring. Then I looked at Bianca, who was standing behind him, mouth open, tears of humiliation streaming down her face. Then I looked at Valerian. I saw the challenge in his eyes. "I will break you," his eyes said. "Try me," my heart answered. I reached out. I took the ring. It was cold and heavy. "I accept, your grace," I said. I leaned down so only he could hear me. "But be warned, Valerian. You are inviting a storm into your house. I will not just, this is your staff. Order them. Abuse them. Ignore them. That is what a duchess does." I looked at the servants. I saw fear in their eyes. They expected me to be another Bianca, cruel and demanding. "I will not be abusing anyone, Valerian," I said quietly. Valerian laughed. "Give it time, Elara. Power is a poison. You've just taken your first sip." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a heavy key. "The treasury," he said, dropping it into my hand. "Buy whatever you want. Gowns. Emeralds. Swans for the lake. Indulge yourself. Prove me right." He leaned in close. "And do not worry about my company. Lady Bianca is staying in the East Wing. I imagine I will be spending my evenings there." He waited for the tears. He wanted me to beg him to send her away. I closed my hand over the key. "That is thoughtful of you, Your Grace," I said calmly. "It will give me time to focus on my work." "Work?" He frowned. "You are a duchess. You don't work." "I do now," I said. And I walked away, leaving him standing in the hall, confused. Dinner was a battlefield. Valerian sat at the head of the table. I sat at the foot. And to my right, seated in the place of honor, was Lady Bianca. She was wearing a diamond necklace that I knew Valerian had bought her yesterday. "This soup is cold," Bianca complained, pushing her bowl away. "Valerian, tell the cook he is incompetent. Fire him." Valerian looked at me. He was testing me. "See," his eyes said. "This is power. Do it." "The soup is gazpacho, Lady Bianca," I said, taking a sip. "It is supposed to be cold. It is a Spanish delicacy." Bianca flushed red. "I knew that. I don't like it." "Then perhaps we should discuss something more to your taste," Valerian said, swirling his wine. "Elara, have you spent your allowance yet? I expected to see you in silk, not that grey rag." "I have spent it, actually," I said. Oh. Valerian grinned, victorious. What did you buy? A tiara? A new carriage? I bought a roof, I replied. Valerian froze. A roof. For the tenant cottages in the lower valley, I explained, buttering my bread. I rode out there today. The families were sleeping under tarps. It reflects poorly on the estate to have our workers living like animals. So, I hired a contractor. Valerian stared at me. Bianca laughed nervously. Boring, Bianca yawned. Valerian, did you hear about the Baron's party? And, I continued, ignoring her, I used the rest of the funds to pay the butcher. Apparently, we haven't paid him in 6 months. He was refusing to deliver meat. Hence, the gazpacho. I looked Valerian in the eye. You gave me the money to indulge myself, Valerian. I indulged in the luxury of paying our debts. It feels quite good. You should try it. Valerian slammed his wine glass down. Wine sloshed onto the tablecloth. He stood up. You are boring me, he snapped. Bianca, come to the library. Read to me. Bianca scrambled up, shooting me a smug look. Of course, darling. They left. I sat alone at the massive table. My hands were shaking under the napkin. It took every ounce of strength not to cry. But I wouldn't let him see it. He wanted a villain. I would give him a hero. And that would hurt him so much more. 2 weeks passed. Valerian tried everything. He threw loud parties until 3 a.m. I made breakfast for the hungover guests and charmed them with intelligent conversation. He bought Bianca a pony. I invited the local schoolteacher to use the library. I was slowly turning his house of debauchery into a home of culture. And the servants, they started to smile. They started to bring me fresh flowers without being asked. One afternoon, I was in the garden, planting roses. I was on my knees in the dirt, wearing an old apron. A shadow fell over me. It was Valerian. He looked agitated. He had been watching me for days, prowling like a caged tiger. Stop it, he growled one day. I wiped my dirty hands. Stop what? Stop acting like this. He gestured wildly. Planting flowers. Paying debts. Reading to the servants' children. You are trying to shame me. I am living my life, Valerian. You are trying to be a saint, he shouted. You cannot save everyone, Elara. You think because you fixed a roof, you are better than me? I stood up. I dusted off my knees. I am not trying to save everyone, I said softly. I stepped closer to him. He smelled of brandy and loneliness. I am trying to save your name, Valerian. He blinked. My name. The House of Thorne used to mean something, I said. My father told me stories of your grandfather. He was a great man. He protected this valley. I pointed to the crumbling stone of the castle. You are doing your best to drag that name through the mud. You treat people like toys. You waste your fortune on people who hate you. I looked at the castle windows, where I knew Bianca was watching. I am the Duchess of Thorne now. It is my name too. And since you refuse to carry the weight of it, I will. Valerian stared at me. For a moment, the sneer vanished. He looked like a little boy who had been scolded by the only person who actually cared about him. He opened his mouth to argue, to mock me. But he couldn't. You are infuriating, he whispered. I know, I smiled. Would you like to help me plant this rose bush? Or are you afraid of getting your boots dirty? He looked at the shovel. He looked at me. I have work to do, he muttered. He turned and walked away. But he didn't go to Bianca. I watched him walk into his study and close the door. For the first time since we married, he was spending the evening alone. He was thinking. And that was the first crack in the wall. Valerian is starting to realize that his game isn't working. He wanted to break her, but she is building something he secretly craves, a home. But Valerian is a stubborn man. He won't admit his wrong without a fight. Or a disaster. Join me for Chapter 3. A stormy night. A carriage accident. And the moment the feared Duke realizes that the only person in the world who would bleed for him is the wife he tried to destroy. Tragedy has a way of revealing the truth. Valerian, the Duke of Thorne, thought he knew exactly who was loyal to him. He thought his mistress, Bianca, adored him. He thought his wife, Elara, despised him. He was wrong on both counts. It happened on a stormy night. A carriage ride that was meant to be routine turned into a nightmare. The carriage overturned. The Duke was pinned, bleeding, helpless in the wreckage. He expected to die alone. Chapter 3, The Broken Mask. You are quiet tonight, wife. Valerian sat opposite me in the carriage. We were returning from a tedious dinner party in the next county. He looked bored. He was twirling a silver coin between his fingers. I am tired, Valerian, I said, looking out at the rain-lashed darkness. And the road is slick. We should not be traveling this fast. Are you afraid? He smirked. I didn't think you felt fear, Saint Elara. I fear stupidity, I retorted. And racing in a storm is stupid. He laughed. You are such a bore. Bianca would be screaming with excitement right now. Then you should have brought Bianca, I snapped. Perhaps I will next tea. The world turned upside down. I was thrown against the ceiling. Glass shattered. Metal screamed. Then, silence. Broken only by the sound of rain and the wheezing of the horses. Valerian, I whispered. My head was throbbing. I tasted blood. I looked around. The carriage was on its side in a ditch. Valerian. Here, a voice groaned from the darkness. It was tight with pain. I crawled through the debris. The roof had collapsed. Valerian was pinned. A heavy beam of the carriage frame was crushing his leg. His face was pale, streaked with blood from a cut on his forehead. Get out, he gasped. The structure, it's unstable. Get out, Elara. I ignored him. I tried to push the beam. It wouldn't budge. I cannot move it, I said, panic rising in my chest. I need help. I looked at the window. I could climb out. I could run for help. But the nearest house was miles away. Go, Valerian commanded. Save yourself. I can't move. I looked at him. The mighty Duke. The man who had mocked me an hour ago. He looked small. He looked terrified. I ripped the hem of my dress. I am not going anywhere, I said firmly. I wrapped the fabric around his bleeding head wound. I found a blanket and tucked it around his shivering shoulders. Then I curled up beside him in the wreckage, shielding his body from the rain leaking through the roof. What are you doing? He whispered. You hate me. I don't hate you, I said softly, wiping blood from his cheek. I hate who you pretend to be. He stared at me. His eyes were losing focus. I wanted to break you, he confessed. His voice was slurred. I wanted to make you beg. I know, I smoothed his hair. Why, Valerian? Why do you want everyone to be small? Because, he closed his eyes. If you are small, you cannot hurt me. My father, he was big. He hurt me. My heart broke. The monster wasn't a monster. He was just a battered child who had grown up to be a bully because he didn't know any other way to be safe. I will not hurt you, I whispered. And I will not let you die here. I held him. For 4 hours. I told him stories. I sang to him. I kept him awake when he wanted to drift into the dark. Stay with me, Valerian, I ordered. Do not dare leave me a widow. I would look terrible in black. He chuckled weakly. You look terrible, in grey. Hush. The rescue party arrived at dawn. Farmers from the village pulled the beam off his leg. They lifted him onto a stretcher. I climbed out after him, muddy, bloody, and exhausted. A second carriage pulled up. Lady Bianca jumped out. She was wearing a pristine white cloak. She ran to the stretcher. Valerian, she shrieked. Oh my God. Is he dead? She looked at the doctor. His leg. Will he walk? If he is crippled, how will he manage the estate? The season starts next month. She didn't touch him. She was looking at his legs with disgust. She was worried about the balls. She was worried about the inconvenience. Valerian opened his eyes. He looked at Bianca, hovering over him like a vulture. Then he looked past her. He found me. I was standing by the wheel, shivering, wiping mud from my face. Elara, he croaked. Bianca frowned. She is fine, Valerian. Look at her, she's a mess. But you. Elara, he said again, louder. He reached out his hand. I walked over. I took his hand. It was cold, but his grip was strong. You stayed, he whispered, as if he couldn't believe it. I told you, I said, squeezing his fingers. I am surviving you. He looked at me. Really looked at me. He saw the blood on my dress, his blood. He saw the tears in my eyes, tears for him. He looked at Bianca. Go home, Bianca, he said coldly. But Valerian. I said go home, he roared, wincing in pain. Get out of my sight. Bianca recoiled. The doctor loaded Valerian into the wagon. Come with me, Valerian said to me. He wouldn't let go of my hand. Do not let go. I won't, I promised. I climbed into the wagon beside him. As we rode back to the castle, watching the sun rise over the valley, I knew everything had changed. The Duke wasn't dead. But the devil was. And the man who was left, he was someone I could maybe, just maybe, learn to love. The storm washed away the lies. Valerian finally sees the truth. Bianca wants the Duke. Elara wants the man. But realizing the truth and fixing the damage are two different things. Valerian has a lot to make up for. Join me for Chapter 4, The Ghost of the Past. He decides to set her free. He handed me annulment papers while he was still bleeding, just to see me smile. Forgiveness is not a switch you can flip. It is a garden you have to water. Valerian survived the crash. His leg was broken, but he was alive. And for the first time in his life, his heart was open. He wanted to love Elara. He wanted to be the husband she deserved. He bought her flowers. He spoke softly. He sent the mistress away forever. But he forgot one thing. Trust, once broken, is the hardest thing to fix. Elara didn't believe him. She thought his kindness was just a reaction to the pain medication. She thought it was a temporary truce. She flinched when he reached for her. And Valerian realized something terrible. He had broken her spirit so thoroughly that she didn't know how to receive love from him. So, he decided to do the only thing that could prove he wasn't a monster anymore. He decided to break his own heart to save hers. Welcome to Chapter 4. The scene where the hero stops fighting with the heroine and starts fighting for her freedom. If you are ready for the tears, hit that like button. Chapter 4, The Silent Goodbye. It had been 2 weeks since the accident. Valerian was recovering in the master suite. His leg was in a splint, propped up on 3 velvet pillows. I walked in with his afternoon tea. Your tea, your grace, I said, keeping my eyes on the tray. Elara, he said. His voice was gentle. It had been gentle for 14 days. It made my skin crawl. Please, sit. Talk to me. I have duties, Valerian. The accounts need reviewing. The accounts can wait, he said. I want to know you. You saved my life, and I don't even know your favorite color. I froze. I set the cup down a little too hard. It is blue, Valerian. I told you that on our wedding night. You told me it was a pedestrian color. He winced. I was a fool. You were honest, I corrected him. I prefer the honesty. This charade of kindness is exhausting. When does the yelling start again? Just tell me, so I can prepare. He looked at me with such profound sadness that I almost believed it. He reached out to touch my hand. I flinched. I pulled back instantly, clutching the tea tray to my chest like a shield. He saw it. The flinch. He saw the fear in my eyes. He slowly withdrew his hand. He slumped back against the pillows, defeated. I scare you, he whispered. You are the Duke of Thorne, I said stiffly. You have power. I have none. Fear is the natural order of things. No, he shook his head. No, it isn't. He stayed silent for a long time. He looked out the window at the garden. Then, he reached for a leather folder on his nightstand. Elara, he said. His voice was steady now. Cold again. Professional. My heart sank. Here it comes, I thought. The monster is back. Yes. I have been thinking about our arrangement, he said. You were right. I forced you into this marriage to save your father's debts. I bought you like a piece of furniture. I said nothing. It was the truth. I cannot change the past, he continued. But I can control the future. He opened the folder and slid a document across the bedspread toward me. Take it. I hesitated. I stepped forward and looked at the paper. My breath hitched. It was a petition for an annulment. Signed by him. And a letter of credit for £50,000. What is this? I stammered. Your freedom, Valerian said. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring at his broken leg. I have grounds. We can claim I was mentally unfit. Or that the marriage was never truly consummated in spirit. My lawyers have arranged it. You are sending me away? I am letting you go, he corrected. You can take the money. You can buy a cottage. You can paint. You can find a man who doesn't make you flinch when he moves his hand. He looked up at me then. His eyes were swimming with tears, but he refused to let them fall. I love you, Elara, he choked out. I think I have loved you since the moment you pulled me from that wreckage. But I love you enough to know that I am the villain in your story. And the villain doesn't get the girl. He pointed to the door. Go. Pack your things. The carriage will take you anywhere you want to go. You are free. I stared at the papers. This was everything I had prayed for. Freedom. Money. Safety. No more cruel words. No more cold nights. I looked at the papers. Then I looked at him. He looked broken. Not just his leg. He was broken. He was ripping his own heart out and handing it to me on a silver platter because he thought it was what I wanted. I reached out and took the papers. His face fell. The light went out of his eyes. He turned his head away to hide his pain. Thank you, Valerian, I whispered. I turned around. And I walked out the door. She left. She actually left. Valerian is alone in his big castle, with his broken leg and his broken heart. He thinks he did the right thing. He thinks he set her free. But Elara isn't running away. She walked out of the room, but she didn't walk out of the castle. She went to the library. To think. She has the papers in her hand. The ink is still wet. But now she has a choice. A real choice. Not a forced marriage. Does she take the money and run? Or does she realize that a man who would set her free is a man worth staying for? Join me for the finale, The Choice. Elara makes her decision. And when she walks back into that room, Valerian's reaction will make you cry. There is a silence that is louder than screaming. It is the silence of an empty room after the person you love has walked out of it. Valerian lay in his bed, staring at the canopy. He had done the right thing. He told himself that over and over again. I set her free. I am a good man now. But it felt like dying. He heard the rumble of carriage wheels in the courtyard below. His heart stopped. That was it. She was leaving. The carriage was taking her away to a life without him. He closed his eyes and let the tears finally fall. A duke does not cry. But Valerian was no longer a duke. He was just a man who had lost everything because he realized its value too late. But then, the door handle turned. Valerian didn't open his eyes. He didn't want the maid to see him weeping. Go away, he croaked. I told you, I want no dinner. I didn't bring dinner, Valerian. I brought your future. He opened his eyes. And he saw her. Welcome to the finale. The The moment where the papers get torn, the walls come down, and the happily ever after finally begins. If you're ready for a swoon-worthy ending, hit that like button one last time. Let's finish this story. Chapter 5, The Choice. Valerian stared at me. He looked like he was seeing a ghost. He tried to sit up, wincing as his leg shifted. Elara, he whispered. I heard the carriage. I thought you left. I walked to the side of the bed. I was still holding the leather folder. The carriage left, I said calmly. I sent my trunks away. His face went pale. You sent your trunks? So you are leaving later? You are taking the train? No, Valerian. I looked at him. He looked so vulnerable. The arrogance was gone. The cruelty was gone. I sent the trunks to the charity house in the village. They were full of the grey dresses you hate. I don't want them anymore. He looked confused. I don't understand. The papers, the money. I held up the annulment papers. The document that gave me my freedom. The document that proved he loved me enough to let me go. You gave me a choice, I said. For the first time in my life, a man gave me a choice. My father didn't. You didn't, when we married. But today, you gave me power. Yes, he nodded eagerly. Use it. Be free, Elara. I looked him in the eye. I am using it. Valerian gasped. I tore the annulment papers in half. Then in quarters. I let the pieces flutter down onto the quilt like snow. Elara, he cried out. What have you done? That was your escape. I don't want to escape, I said softly. I sat on the edge of the bed and took his hand. He didn't pull away this time. He gripped my fingers like a lifeline. But I am a monster, he stammered. I hurt you. I ignored you. You were a monster, I agreed. But the man who sat in the rain with me, the man who just tried to give away half his fortune to make me smile, that isn't a monster. I leaned in closer. I am not staying for the Duke. I am staying for the man who is learning how to be human. But I have conditions. He stared at me, hope dawning in his eyes like a sunrise. Anything. Name it. I will give you the moon. I don't want the moon, I smiled. I want a partner. No more mistresses. No more sleeping in separate wings. No more silence at dinner. If we do this, Valerian, we do it for real. He lifted my hand to his lips. He kissed my knuckles, then my palm, then my wrist. It was the most intimate thing he had ever done. I promise, he vowed. His voice shook. I will spend the rest of my life making up for the first year of it. I will make you so happy, Elara, that you will forget I was ever a fool. I reached out and brushed the hair back from his forehead. Then start now, I whispered. He pulled me down. It wasn't a hungry kiss, or a demanding one. It was soft. It tasted like tea and forgiveness. It was a promise. It took 6 weeks for Valerian's leg to heal. It took 6 months for the village to stop gossiping about the change in the Duke. They couldn't understand why the Duke, who used to spend his evenings at the gambling clubs, was now seen walking in the gardens with his wife every evening at sunset. They didn't understand why he fired his entire staff and rehired them with double wages, just because Elara asked him to. But Valerian understood. He kept the torn pieces of the annulment papers. He framed them and hung them in his study, not as a reminder of the time he almost lost her, but as a reminder of the day she chose him. And as for Elara, she never wore grey again. She wore blue. The brightest blue she could find. Because she wasn't invisible anymore. She was loved. And that is the story of the Duke's broken mask. Sometimes, a heart has to break before it can be put back together the right way. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, please write blue dress in the comments so I know you made it to the end. And don't forget to subscribe for our next story, The Nanny Who Stole the Earl's Cold Heart. See you next time.